Welcome to Monk's Temple. Settle into this moment. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, just let it be. There's no need to change a thing, your posture, your breathing, the thoughts moving through you. Let them all be exactly as they are. In the gentle space of listening, something within you already knows how to soften. Something within you already remembers a quiet kind of belonging. So often, we live as if we're waiting for permission to arrive. Permission to rest. Permission to feel at peace. Permission to be enough. We look for this permission in the eyes of others, in the completion of tasks, in the reaching of goals. And in that search, we wander farther and farther from the one place we never needed permission to enter, our own presence. Buddhism doesn't ask you to search for a new kind of peace. It simply asks you to notice the peace that has been here all along, quietly waiting beneath the noise of striving. I remember, years ago, walking through a forest with an old teacher after a heavy rain. The path was muddy and slick. I was walking carefully, focused on not falling, watching every step with tense concentration. My teacher, walking ahead, seemed to glide over the same mud. His steps were light, almost effortless. When I asked him how he managed it, he didn't speak of balance or technique. He simply said, "You are trying to walk on the mud. I am letting the earth hold me." In that moment, I understood something fundamental. My effort was a form of resistance, a subtle fight against the ground itself. His ease was a form of trust, a surrender to the support that was already there. This is the heart of a Buddhist teaching called Shraddha, often translated as faith or trust. It is not faith in something distant or divine, but a profound trust in the ground of your own being, in the inherent support of the present moment, even when it feels slippery and uncertain. Your inner home isn't built by carefully avoiding the mud. It's found in the moment you stop fighting the ground beneath your feet and realize it has been holding you all along. Consider the sky. We look up and name it, blue, gray, filled with clouds, clear and bright. But the sky itself never claims these states. It doesn't cling to a perfect blue day or resist a stormy afternoon. It simply provides the space in which all weather unfolds. Your mind is like that weather. Ever-changing, sometimes calm, sometimes turbulent. But your awareness, the silent knowing presence behind the thoughts, is the sky itself. Buddhism teaches that our suffering arises when we confuse the weather for the sky. We think, "I am this storm of anxiety," or "I am this cloud of sadness." We forget the vast, clear, unchanging space that holds these passing conditions. No storm, no matter how fierce, can damage the sky. No cloud can stain it permanently. The practice of coming home is the gentle remembrance, I am not the storm. I am the space in which the storm is happening. And in that knowing, the storm loses its power to define you. It becomes something you experience, not something you are. If this reminder of the sky within you resonates, I invite you to subscribe to Monk's Temple. By subscribing, you plant a small flag in the ground of your own awareness, a way to remember to look up and recognize the sky again. It helps this space of gentle remembrance grow. Now, let's breathe into this together. We live in a world that praises the climb. The upward journey, the struggle to the peak, the story of overcoming. And there is beauty in that. But Buddhism holds a tender, often overlooked wisdom. The deepest peace is not found at the peak, but in the willingness to be in the valley. In the soft acceptance of the descent, the rest in the shaded grove, the quiet of the plateau. We are taught to fear the valleys, the periods of stillness, of not growing, of simply being. We label them as stagnation, as failure to ascend. But what if the valley isn't a place of lack, but a place of deep nourishment? What if it's the earth gathering its resources, the roots digging deeper, the silent preparation that makes all growth possible? There is a story from my own life, from a long retreat in the high desert. For the first week, I was filled with a restless energy. I wanted insights, breakthroughs, a dramatic shift in consciousness. I meditated with fierce determination, trying to achieve stillness. Naturally, I found only frustration. One afternoon, exhausted, I gave up. I left the meditation hall and simply lay on the hard, sun-warmed earth, looking at the vast, empty sky. I didn't try to meditate. I didn't try to be spiritual. I just let myself be tired, small, and human on the ground. In that total surrender of effort, a profound quiet descended. It wasn't a thrilling peak experience. It was a gentle falling into the valley of my own exhaustion, and finding it to be soft, forgiving, and deeply kind. I realized I had been trying to climb a mountain of my own making, while peace was here in the dust, in the surrender. The Buddha taught the middle way, not the path of peaks or valleys, but the path that walks gently through both, without clinging to the views from the top or fearing the quiet of the bottom. Your wholeness includes both the climber and the one who rests. Your home is the entire landscape, not just the summit. Let me offer you a metaphor. Imagine you are a hollow bamboo flute. Life is the wind. Sometimes the wind blows soft and melodic, creating beautiful, joyful notes. Sometimes it blows in harsh, discordant gusts, creating sounds that feel jarring and unpleasant. Our instinct is to try to control the wind, to only allow the sweet melodies and block out the discord. This is exhausting and impossible. The flute's purpose is not to control the wind, but to be an open, hollow channel through which the wind can move. Your practice, inspired by the Buddhist concept of sunyata or emptiness, is not to become a better controller of life's winds, but to become more like the flute, open, clear, and resonant. You don't have to like every note that life plays through you. But you can learn to stop closing off around the difficult ones. You can let the breath of existence move through your hollow core, trusting that your essence is not the note played, but the openness that allows any note to be heard. In that openness, even discord can become part of a larger, more complex song. You find your home not in the quality of the music, but in the silent, spacious awareness that listens to it all. Let's continue. Have you ever noticed how the body knows truth long before the mind agrees? A tightening in the chest when a decision feels wrong, even if it looks right on paper. A deep, settling sigh when you finally speak something honest. A heaviness in the limbs when you've been moving in a direction that isn't yours. The body is not just a container for the mind, it is a wise, patient teacher speaking in the language of sensation. Buddhism, through the practice of mindfulness, invites us into a profound conversation with this inner teacher. We spend so much of our lives living from the neck up, in ideas, plans, memories, fears, that we become displaced from the grounded intelligence of our own flesh and breath. Coming home is, in many ways, a homecoming to the body. Not the body as an object to be judged or improved, but the body as a living, breathing field of present moment awareness. I learned this not from a scripture, but from a stone. During a long, silent walking meditation period, my task was to walk a 100-yard path back and forth for hours. My mind was a torrent of boredom and resistance. About the third day, my foot struck a particularly sharp stone. A jolt of pain shot through me, followed by a wave of hot anger. Why was this stone here? Why was this path not smooth? I wanted to kick it away. But the instruction was to note all sensations without reaction. So, instead of acting, I stopped. I stood with the pain in my foot. I felt its precise location, its throbbing quality. And then, something shifted. The pain began to separate into a constellation of sensations: heat, pressure, vibration. The story of "a stone ruined my meditation" faded, and in its place was just this. A vivid, intense experience in the foot. The anger dissolved because it was tied to the story, not to the raw sensation. When I finally lifted my foot, I didn't feel resentment toward the stone. I felt a strange gratitude. It had been a perfect, undeniable anchor to the present. It had forced me out of my thinking mind and directly into my feeling body. The Buddha taught that enlightenment is touching reality directly. Sometimes, reality touches us first, as a sharp stone. Our work is to feel it completely, without the cushion of our thoughts. This points to a powerful Buddhist principle, Vedana, or feeling tone. Every experience carries a subtle, immediate feeling of pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Our suffering arises not from the unpleasant sensation itself, but from our reflexive reaction to it, the craving for it to stop, the aversion that tightens around it. The path to freedom lies in inserting a moment of space between the feeling tone and the reaction. To feel the pain, and instead of "I hate this," to simply note, unpleasant sensation is present. This tiny pause is a revolution. It is the moment you step out of the automatic pilot of suffering and into the conscious space of your true home, the awareness that can hold any feeling without being consumed by it. Let's explore another metaphor. Imagine your mind is a vast, clear lake. Thoughts and emotions are like fish swimming in its depths. Most of the time, you are in the water, swimming frantically with the fish, chasing some, fleeing others, completely identified with the swirling, churning life of the lake. You think you are the frantic swimmer. Buddhism invites you to do something radical, to climb out onto the shore. To sit on the bank and simply watch the lake. From here, you see the fish, the anxiety, the joy, the planning, the memory, swim by. You see the wind create ripples. You see the still, reflective surface and the dark depths. But you are no longer in the water. You are the one who is aware of the entire lake. This shift in perspective, from being the swimmer to being the witness, is the essence of meditation. It's not about emptying the lake of fish. It's about realizing you were never the fish to begin with. Your home is the steady, quiet awareness on the bank, the space from which all the activity of your life can be seen, appreciated, and released. I once met a woman, a painter, who suffered from crippling creative blocks. She would sit before the blank canvas with a storm of self-critical thoughts: "This won't be good enough. You're a fraud. What's the point?" She was, in the metaphor, drowning in the lake with these predatory fish. Her practice became, before painting, to sit for 5 minutes and simply watch her thoughts. She didn't paint, she just practiced being the one on the bank. She'd note, there's the fraud fish swimming by. There's the fear fish. Over time, she reported something beautiful. She said, the thoughts didn't go away. But they lost their teeth. They became just thoughts. And from the bank, I could see that the blank canvas wasn't a threat. It was just part of the landscape of the lake. It was calm water waiting for a ripple. Her painting didn't become easier through effort, it became possible through a change of relationship. She had found a home on the shore of her own mind, and from that stable place, she could engage with the water without fear of drowning. This leads us to a beautiful, often misunderstood Buddhist concept, Sangha, or community. We often think of it as the external community of practitioners. But there is an inner Sangha as well. It is the community of all the parts within you, the joyful child, the wary protector, the wounded adolescent, the wise elder. So often, we exile members of this inner community. We disown our anger, silence our need, shame our vulnerability. We try to run a kingdom with only a handful of acceptable citizens. This creates inner civil war. True inner peace, the Buddha taught, comes from inclusion, not exclusion. It comes from welcoming all parts of yourself to the table with compassionate curiosity. You don't have to let the angry part drive the car, but you can let it sit in the back seat and tell you why it's upset. You don't have to obey the fearful part, but you can listen to its warning. When you turn toward these exiled parts with a gentle, "Ah, you are here too," something profound happens. The war within subsides. Energy once used for internal conflict becomes available for life. You become a harmonious inner society, a true sanctuary. Your home is not a minimalist space with only one type of furniture. It is a warm, lived-in house where every room, every piece of furniture, even the dusty corners, belong. There's a quiet magic in the space between thoughts, a fleeting, open silence that most of us rush to fill. We treat silence like an emptiness to be feared, a void that needs the noise of planning, remembering, or worrying to make it feel safe. But what if that silence is not empty at all? What if it is the most fertile ground of your being, the pure awareness from which all thoughts sprout and to which they return? Buddhism teaches us to value this gap, this bardo between experiences, as the very heart of our true nature. It's in the pause after an exhale, before the next inhale draws itself in. It's in the moment after a sound fades, before the mind names the next one. It's in the stillness after you've finished a task, before you compulsively reach for the next. This pause is the doorway. It's where you slip out of the stream of doing and rest in the ocean of being. I remember an autumn at the temple when I was given the task of raking the endless fallen leaves from the ancient ginkgo trees. It was a repetitive, monumental chore. At first, my mind raged against it, calculating how many hours it would take, resenting the endlessness. Then, I remembered an old practice. Instead of focusing on the endless piles, I began to focus on the moment between rake strokes. The gentle arc of the rake pulling back, the brief second of stillness before it swept forward again. I placed my attention in those tiny, silent gaps. The task transformed. It was no longer a prison of repetition, but a rhythmic dance of movement and rest. The leaves got raked, but I was no longer a prisoner to the doing of it. I was a visitor in the silence between the actions. The Buddha's path is often called the practice of mindfulness, but it could just as accurately be called the practice of gapfulness, the gentle art of noticing and resting in the natural pauses that are already woven into the fabric of your life. Your breath does it for you. Your heartbeat does it for you. Life itself is a pulsation of activity and rest. Your suffering comes from living only in the activity and fearing the rest. Your homecoming is the conscious return to the rest. Consider the spider's web, glistening with morning dew. It is a marvel of intricate connection, delicate yet strong. But the web is not the spider's home. The spider's home is the silent, dark center from which all the threads radiate. We spend our lives focusing on the web. The interconnected strands of our relationships, our responsibilities, our achievements and failures. We identify with the strands, thinking, I am this thread of success, or I am this broken strand of a failed relationship. We feel every tremor on the web as a personal crisis. Buddhism invites you to remember the center. Your true home is not the ever-vibrating web of circumstances, but the still, aware presence at the core from which your entire life unfolds. From this center, you can feel the vibrations, the joys, the fears, the pulls and tensions, but you are not thrown into chaos by them. You are the space that holds the pattern. You can care for the web without believing you are the web. When a strand breaks, as strands do, the center remains. Unharmed. Complete. Your practice is not to build a perfect, unbreakable web. It is to cultivate a quiet, unshakable center. This understanding is deeply connected to the Buddhist teaching of pratyaya samutpada, or dependent origination. Nothing exists in isolation. Your web is connected to everything. But the miracle is that the aware center, the consciousness that knows the web, is not dependent. It is the precondition for knowing anything at all. It is the silent witness that was there before the first strand was spun. Finding home is the profound shift from identifying with the fragile, interdependent threads, to abiding as the independent awareness that perceives the entire, beautiful, fragile tapestry. Let me tell you a story about a clockmaker who visited the temple. He was a man obsessed with precision, with fixing what was broken, with making the gears of his life run smoothly and on time. He was, understandably, in a state of constant low-grade anxiety. Time was his master and his tormentor. We didn't speak of meditation. Instead, I took him to the oldest part of the temple gardens, to a sundial carved centuries ago from a single block of stone. Moss grew on its face. Its markings were worn soft by rain and sun. This, I said, is our timekeeper. He was aghast. It's imprecise. It doesn't work on cloudy days. I asked him to place his hand on the sun-warmed stone and be still. He stood there for a long time, his skilled fingers resting on the ancient grooves. When he finally spoke, his voice was thick. It's not measuring time, he whispered. It's being touched by light. In that moment, he stepped out of the mental construct of time, the relentless ticking of past and future, and into the embodied experience of the present moment, marked only by the direct sensation of sunlight and shadow on stone. His relationship to time, to effort, to his own life, softened irreversibly. He had, for a moment, stopped being the clockmaker and become the sundial. Present, porous, and measured only by the direct light of now. The Buddha taught that liberation is the end of clinging, and we cling fiercely to our mental constructs of time. Freedom is found in the timeless present, where life is not measured in ticks, but felt as a direct, immediate experience. Your home is not in the efficiently managed schedule. It is in the sun-warmed stone of this very sensation, this very breath. We often speak of finding peace as if it is a treasure buried far away. We embark on grand quests, adopt new philosophies, change our surroundings. But Buddhism suggests peace is not found, it is uncovered. It is the natural state that is revealed when we stop adding agitation to the present moment. Imagine a pond whose water is stirred up and muddy. You want clear water. The instinct is to reach in and try to strain the mud out with your hands. This only stirs it up more. The Buddhist approach is to simply be still. To stop adding new disturbances. To sit by the pond and let the mud, on its own, settle to the bottom. The clarity was always in the water, it was just temporarily obscured by agitated particles. Your mind is that pond. Your thoughts and reactive emotions are the mud. Meditation is not an act of straining out thoughts. It is the profound practice of letting them settle by returning, again and again, to a point of stillness. The breath, a sound, a sensation. You don't create the clarity. You allow it by ceasing to stir the water. Every time you notice you've been caught in a swirling thought and gently return to your anchor, you are not failing. You are allowing a particle of mud to settle. Peace isn't something you achieve at the end of this process. It is the clear water that becomes visible each time the mud settles, if only for a second. Your home is the clear water, not the absence of mud. There is a deep fatigue that has nothing to do with sleep. It's the fatigue of performing a version of yourself that no longer fits. It's the weight of the mask you've worn so long your face has forgotten its own shape. We carry these identities like suits of armor, the competent one, the caregiver, the strong one, the seeker. They served a purpose once. They protected a softer self from a world that felt too sharp. But armor, over time, becomes a prison. It grows heavy. It restricts your breath. And the greatest tragedy is that you begin to believe the armor is you. Buddhism points to this clinging to identity as a primary source of our confinement. The teaching of anatta, not self, is not a cold denial of your existence. It is the key to the prison door. It is the liberating recognition that you are more vast, more fluid, more mysterious than any single role you play. You are the one who puts the armor on, and more importantly, you are the one who can take it off. I saw this liberation unfold in a man who came to the temple, a man who had built his life around being a pillar of strength for his family after a great loss. He was the rock. He never cried. He never wavered. And he was dying inside from the loneliness of that fortress. During a guided meditation on compassion, he was asked to bring to mind someone who was suffering. He thought of his younger self, the boy who had lost a parent. As he imagined sending kindness to that boy, the armor cracked. A single tear escaped, then a river. He wept not just for the boy, but for the decades of stoicism that had walled him off from his own grief. In the days that followed, he was quieter, softer. He wasn't weak. He was real. He had taken off the rock armor and discovered the living, breathing, vulnerable human being underneath, a being capable of both strength and tears, of holding others and needing to be held. The Buddha didn't teach us to become invulnerable. He taught us to become intimate with our vulnerability, for it is the very thread that connects us to the heart of all life. Your home is not the impregnable fortress. It is the warm, lit hearth where all of you, the strong and the soft, the joyful and the grieving, is welcome to sit and be warm. This leads to a metaphor of the seasons. We often wish to live in an eternal spring or summer, constant growth, constant warmth, constant light. We resist the autumn of letting go and the winter of stillness. We see fall and winter as failures of the year, times of death and absence. But the earth knows no such judgment. The tree does not weep as its leaves turn gold and fall. It releases them with a majestic grace, knowing this surrender is not an end, but a necessary part of its cycle. The deep quiet of winter is not death, it is a profound gathering, a turning inward where energy is conserved and roots dream of spring. Your inner life has all these seasons. There are times of blossoming and abundance, summer, times of harvesting and release, autumn, times of quiet introspection and rest, winter, and times of new beginnings, spring. Suffering arises when your mind, fixated on summer, resists the natural turn toward autumn within you. You judge your tiredness as laziness, your need for solitude as antisocial, your period of non-achievement as worthless. Buddhism, aligned with the natural world, teaches anicca, impermanence. All seasons change. No single season is the correct one. Your wholeness requires them all. Your practice is to learn the wisdom of each season. To blossom without arrogance, to release without despair, to rest without guilt, and to begin again without forcing. Your home is not a single season. It is the whole, turning wheel of the year within your own soul. I recall a powerful lesson from a master calligrapher who visited the temple. He watched me practice writing Chinese characters, my hand tense, trying to force each stroke to be perfect. He stopped me and said, "You are trying to draw the character. You must let the character write itself through you." He then demonstrated. His posture was relaxed, his breath even. His hand moved not from muscle alone, but from a deep, centered flow. The ink met the rice paper not as a conquest, but as a kiss. The character that emerged was alive, vibrant, effortless. The space around the stroke, he said, is as important as the stroke itself. The emptiness gives the form its meaning. This is a profound expression of Buddhist wisdom. We focus so intently on the stroke, on our actions, our words, our achievements, that we forget the emptiness, the silent awareness, from which all action flows. We try to manufacture the form without honoring the space. Your true essence is more like that space and the effortless intelligence that moves within it, than it is like the tense, controlled hand trying to make a perfect mark. When you align with that spacious intelligence, your life stops being a series of forced strokes and becomes a flowing expression of the form that wishes to emerge through you. Your home is the clear, open space of awareness, the sunyata, from which the beautiful, imperfect calligraphy of your life is drawn. We also carry with us a silent ledger of old debts, debts we think we owe to the past, and debts we believe the past owes to us. Regrets, resentments, old shames, unresolved wounds. We drag this ledger everywhere, and its weight shapes our posture in the present. We limp under its burden. Buddhism offers a radical practice. The forgiveness balance sheet does not need to be settled. It needs to be seen as a story written in fading ink on pages that no longer exist. The past is a ghost. It has no substance except the substance you give it by continually feeding it with your attention. The practice of mindfulness is the practice of pulling your attention out of the ghost town of the past and placing it firmly in the alive, sensory-rich town of the present. You don't have to forgive and forget in a sentimental way. You simply have to recognize that the person who did that thing and the person to whom it was done are not exactly here anymore. They have changed. You have changed. The only real thing is the one reading this ledger now. And that one can choose to close the book. There is a story of an old monk who was tasked with tending a bridge over a rocky stream. Every day, he would sweep the bridge clear of leaves and dust. One day, a young traveler crossed, angry and shouting insults at the world. He kicked over the monk's bucket of water, soaking him, and stormed off. The monk said nothing. He righted the bucket, refilled it, and continued sweeping. The next day, the traveler returned, shamefaced. "Why didn't you yell at me? Strike me?" he asked. The monk paused in his sweeping. "Young man," he said, "if someone gives you a gift and you do not accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" "It belongs to the one who tried to give it," said the traveler. The monk smiled and went back to sweeping. "Yesterday, you tried to give me your anger. I did not accept it. So it remained with you. My bridge is clean. Is yours?" The Buddha taught that we are not victims of the actions of others, we are victims of our own attachment to those actions. When we refuse to take in the poison another offers, we leave it with them. Our inner home is a sanctuary with a strong door. We can see the chaos outside, but we do not have to bring it inside and furnish our rooms with it. Your peace is not determined by what is offered to you. It is determined by what you consciously choose to receive. Have you ever watched a bird alight on a branch? There is a moment of perfect, poised surrender. The branch may sway, the wind may gust, but the bird doesn't clutch the wood in terror. It doesn't try to control the tree. Its feet simply rest, its weight held by a trust deeper than thought. It is both completely on the branch and completely ready to let go. This is a living metaphor for the Buddhist teaching of non-attachment. We are taught that to be safe, we must clutch. To people, to outcomes, to beliefs, to versions of ourselves. We white-knuckle our way through life, believing our grip is what keeps us from falling. But true safety, the Buddha taught, is found in the balanced surrender of the bird. It is the trust that the branch of the present moment can hold you, and that if it bends or breaks, your nature is to have wings. You are both the one resting and the innate capacity to fly. Your suffering is the ache of clenched fists. Your freedom is the open, ready palm. I learned this not in a grand lecture, but in a pottery shed. A master potter was teaching me to center clay on the wheel. My task was to apply steady, even pressure as the wheel spun. But my fear of failure made my hands rigid. I would press too hard, or jerk away, and the clay would wobble violently off-center, a hopeless, slumping mess. "You are fighting the clay," the potter said softly. "You must become one with its motion. Let your hands listen." She placed her hands over mine. Together, we felt the spinning hum of the wheel, the cool, yielding resistance of the clay. She guided me to apply pressure that was firm yet receiving, like a steady embrace. Suddenly, the clay ceased to be an adversary. It became a partner in a silent dance. Under that unified pressure, it sighed into perfect, still center. In that moment, the clay pot was born, not from force, but from harmonious relationship. The Buddha's path is like this. We try to force our lives into a centered, peaceful shape through willpower and control. This only creates more wobble, more drama. The practice is to become one with the spinning wheel of the present moment, to apply the steady, compassionate pressure of awareness, not to conquer our experience, but to join with it. From that joining, centeredness arises naturally. The vessel of your life forms not from struggle, but from a profound, listening partnership with what is. Let's consider the nature of a mirror. A mirror does not discriminate. It reflects the beautiful face and the weary face with equal clarity. It holds the image of a blooming flower and a withered leaf without preference. It does not cling to one image or reject another. When the object moves away, the mirror simply returns to its own clear, empty nature, ready to reflect the next thing perfectly. Your awareness is this mirror. Thoughts, emotions, and sensations are the passing images. Suffering arises because we forget we are the mirror. We glue ourselves to certain images, I am this success, and try to violently erase others, I am not this failure. We get lost in the drama of the reflections, staining the glass with our judgments. The practice of mindfulness is the gentle polishing of the mirror. Each time you notice you are caught in an image, a worrying thought, a gripping emotion, and you simply note, thinking, or feeling, you are wiping the glass clean. You are remembering your true nature as the clear, reflective space that holds all images without being defined by any of them. Your home is not in any particular reflection. Your home is the mirror itself, pristine, silent, and capable of holding the entire world without ever being tarnished by it. This understanding brings us to a powerful, often overlooked Buddhist concept, mudita, or sympathetic joy. It is the happiness we feel at another's happiness. In a culture of comparison and scarcity, this can feel difficult. But when you realize you are the mirror, not the image, a beautiful shift occurs. Another's success, their beauty, their good fortune, is simply another beautiful image appearing in the vast awareness that you are. You can appreciate it without it threatening your image, because you are no longer exclusively identified with a single, small reflection. Their joy becomes your joy, because it is all happening within the same conscious space. Envy melts away not through forced positivity, but through the realization of non-separation. Your well-being is not a limited resource to be hoarded. It is the capacity of the mirror to clearly reflect, and in that clarity, to find beauty in every form that appears. I remember a woman who came to the temple consumed by professional jealousy. A colleague had received a promotion she deeply wanted. The bitterness was eating her alive. I asked her not to try to feel happy for him, but to do a simple practice. For 1 week, she was to notice moments of joy in others, a child laughing, a couple holding hands, a stranger receiving good news, and simply note, joy is present. She wasn't making it hers or theirs, she was just acknowledging its existence in the field of her awareness. By the end of the week, she reported a curious change. The jealousy is still there, she said, but it's smaller. It's like one dark cloud in a big sky. And I'm starting to see that the sky can hold my colleague's sunshine and my cloud at the same time. It doesn't have to be one or the other. She was beginning to identify with the sky, the mirror, rather than with her single, stormy reflection. This is the path of liberation, expanding your sense of self from a solitary, fragile image to the boundless capacity that contains all images. We often think of patience as a passive waiting, a teeth-gritting endurance until something better comes along. But in Buddhism, patience, khanti, is an active, vibrant quality of the heart. It is the willingness to be fully present with the unfolding of things, at their own pace. It is the deep trust that a seed knows exactly how to become a tree, and that our job is not to dig it up daily to check on the roots, but to provide the steady conditions of soil, sun, and water. Of mindful attention and compassion. Impatience is a violence we do to the present moment. It is a rejection of the seed's perfect process in favor of our mental story of how fast it should grow. There is an ancient bonsai tree in the temple courtyard, pruned and shaped by generations of monks. A visitor once asked the gardener, "How can you bear to work so slowly? It takes decades to see a change." The gardener smiled and pointed to the moss at the base of the tree. "See this moss? It grows a millimeter a year. I do not hurry the moss. I do not hurry the tree. We are in conversation with time, not at war with it. True patience is this conversation. It is aligning your inner rhythm with the rhythm of life itself, which includes both rapid rivers and slow-growing moss. When you practice this kind of patience with yourself, with your healing, your growth, your understanding, you stop being a frantic manager of your own evolution and become a wise, nurturing gardener. You realize that the most profound transformations are not the sudden, dramatic ones, but the slow, silent turning of the soul toward the light, one barely perceptible degree at a time. Your home is found in this unhurried, trusting conversation with your own becoming. There is a profound difference between solitude and loneliness. Loneliness is the ache of absence, a story that something vital is missing. Solitude, in its deepest sense, is the rich, full presence of your own being. It is the experience of being comfortably, completely at home with yourself. So many of us fear being alone because we have never truly met the companion who resides within. We fill the silence with noise, the empty hours with distraction, because the quiet feels like a vacuum. But Buddhism reframes this quiet as the most potent space of all. It is in solitude that we stop performing for an audience, even an imaginary one, and meet the raw, unedited truth of our own existence. It is where the armor finally comes off, not because we are safe from others, but because we are finally safe with ourselves. I remember a long winter I spent in a hermitage, a small stone hut on the temple grounds. The first week was a torrent of mental noise, boredom, restlessness, imaginary conversations, waves of old emotions. I felt intensely lonely. But as the days turned into weeks, something shifted. The noise didn't stop, but my relationship to it changed. I began to hear the silence between the noises. And in that silence, I discovered a presence, steady, calm, and profoundly kind. It wasn't a voice or a vision. It was a feeling of being accompanied from within. I realized I had never been alone, I had just been too busy talking to myself to notice the silent, listening presence that was always there. The Buddha spent years in solitude before his enlightenment. He wasn't running from the world, he was diving into the ultimate relationship. The one with the ground of his own awareness. That relationship, once discovered, becomes an unshakable inner companionship. You can be in a crowd and feel this solitude. It is the inner sanctum that no external event can invade. Cultivating this is not selfish. It is the foundation from which all genuine connection with others can flow. You cannot truly meet another if you are fleeing from yourself. Think of your awareness as a vast, clear night sky. Your thoughts, feelings, and sensations are like stars, planets, and passing comets. Some are bright, some dim, some move quickly, some seem fixed. We spend our lives cataloging the stars, worrying about their patterns, fearing when one falls. We believe the drama of the cosmos is who we are. But what if you are not the stars? What if you are the boundless, dark, silent space that holds them all? This space is not empty. It is full of potential, full of peace. It is the womb from which all light is born and into which all light returns. A single star, no matter how brilliant, does not define the sky. A single thought, no matter how painful, does not define you. Your practice is to rest as the sky. To notice the stars, the anxiety star, the joy star, the memory star, and to know yourself as the profound, peaceful darkness that allows them to shine. The sky never tries to rearrange the constellations. It simply holds them. In the same way, you can hold all the changing constellations of your inner life without needing to fix them. Your home is this sky-like awareness, eternally present, eternally undisturbed. This perspective is intimately linked to the Buddhist teaching of shunyata, or emptiness. It doesn't mean nothing exists. It means nothing exists independently, in isolation. Every star depends on the sky. Every thought depends on awareness. The sky is empty of being a star, which allows it to be the condition for all stars. Your awareness is empty of being any particular thought or feeling, which is precisely what allows every thought and feeling to be known. When you realize you are this empty, luminous space, you are free. Things arise and pass within you, but they cannot confine you, because you are the room, not the furniture. Let me tell you a story about a master carpenter I once knew. He was commissioned to build a library for the temple. He worked with a focused slowness that was almost maddening to watch. He would spend an entire day planing a single board, feeling the grain with his eyes closed. I, in my youthful impatience, asked him why he didn't work faster. He put down his plane and said, "I am not building a library. I am having a conversation with this wood. If I rush, I stop listening. And if I stop listening, the joint will not be true." He then showed me two pieces of wood he was joining. "This joint," he said, pointing to the nearly invisible seam, "will hold not because of glue or nails, but because two surfaces met with perfect understanding. They recognized each other." His work was an act of deep, respectful relationship. This is the essence of mindfulness in Buddhism. It is not a technique for self-improvement. It is a way of being in deep, listening relationship with your experience, with this breath, this sensation, this sound. When you rush through your life trying to build a perfect identity or future, the joints are weak, the structure is shaky. But when you slow down into a listening relationship with the raw material of the present moment, something true and solid emerges. Your life becomes a well-crafted whole, not because you forced it, but because you honored the grain of reality as it presented itself to you, piece by piece. We carry so many invisible rules about how we should feel. I should be over this by now. I shouldn't feel angry about something so small. I should be happier. These shoulds are like trying to command the weather. They create a civil war between what is actually happening in our inner climate and our idea of what should be happening. The Buddha's path involves a radical honesty, the courage to feel what you feel, without immediately layering on a judgment about whether it is right or wrong, spiritual or unspiritual. This is Yatha Buddha Jnana, knowing things as they are. It is the foundation of wisdom. You cannot find peace by arguing with a storm. You find peace by acknowledging, there is a storm. This acknowledgement is not resignation. It is the first step of intelligent engagement. Once you stop fighting the fact of the feeling, you can relate to it skillfully. You can ask, what does this anger need, or where is this sadness living in my body? The feeling is no longer an enemy to be defeated, it becomes a messenger with valuable information about your inner landscape. Your heart becomes a welcoming sanctuary for all your weather, knowing that no storm lasts forever, and that the sun of awareness is always present behind the clouds. We often speak of the mind as if it's a thing we own, a tool we wield. But from the Buddhist perspective, the mind in its ordinary state is more like a wild river, carrying us along in its current of past memories and future imaginings. We are not sitting on the bank watching this river. We are in the river, often drowning in its thoughts, unable to touch the solid ground of what is actually happening right now. The practice of meditation is not about stopping the river. It is about finding the riverbed, the stable, silent ground of awareness beneath the flow. It's about learning to rest there, so you can feel the water moving over you without being swept away. I learned this through a simple, humble practice, listening to the temple bell. The bell would be struck once at dawn and once at dusk. The instruction was to listen to the sound from the very first vibration until the very last trace of it faded into silence. At first, my mind would interrupt almost immediately. Before the sound had even halfway faded, I'd be thinking, "That's a beautiful sound," or "I wonder who rang it," or "What's for breakfast?" I was missing the actual experience by rushing to comment on it. But as I kept practicing, something shifted. I began to hear more of the sound's journey, its bright birth, its full resonance, its gradual, shimmering decay into an exquisite, ringing silence. I started to notice the space after the sound, which was somehow even more profound. In that space, my mind was often still, simply resting in the aftermath. I was touching the riverbed. The Buddha taught mindfulness of sound as one of the foundations of awareness. It's not an esoteric practice. It's a direct training in coming out of the narrative stream of your mind and landing in the sensory reality of this moment. Your breath is a bell that rings continuously. A bird call is a bell. The hum of your computer is a bell. Each is an invitation to step out of the river of thought and rest, even for a second, on the solid ground of pure listening. In that rest, you are home. Consider the image of a lighthouse. It stands on a rugged, unchanging point of rock. Around it, the ocean is in constant motion, waves crash, storms rage, tides ebb and flow. The lighthouse does not try to calm the sea. It does not get confused with the weather. Its light simply turns, steadily, consistently, casting its beam across the dark, tumultuous water. Your awareness can be this lighthouse. The ocean is your ever-changing life, the emotions, the circumstances, the ups and downs. The solid rock is your commitment to presence. The beam of light is your compassionate, non-judgmental attention. In a storm, a ship doesn't ask the lighthouse to stop the waves. It just needs to see the steady light to know where the safe ground is. In your inner storms, you don't need the chaos to stop to find peace. You just need to find the steady beam of your own attention and follow it back to the ground of your being. You are both the lighthouse and the keeper of the light. Your practice is to keep turning that light of awareness, especially when the seas are rough, illuminating the truth of the present moment without being consumed by the drama of the waves. This connects deeply to the Buddhist principle of ahimsa, or non-harming, applied inwardly. We are often violently at war with our own experience. We attack our wandering mind in meditation. We condemn our negative emotions. This inner violence creates more turbulence, more suffering. The lighthouse does not attack the storm. It simply shines. Non-harming toward yourself means meeting your wandering mind with a gentle return, not a scolding. It means meeting your anger with curiosity instead of condemnation. You are ending the civil war within. When you stop fighting yourself, a tremendous amount of energy is liberated, energy that was spent on the conflict itself. This energy then becomes available for clarity, for creativity, for genuine compassion toward others. Your inner world transforms from a battlefield into a sanctuary watched over by a steady, kind light. I recall a man who came to the temple, a veteran haunted by memories that would surge up like sudden, violent squalls. He called them flashbacks, but they felt more like being dragged underwater. We worked with the lighthouse metaphor. He couldn't stop the memories from coming, any more than a lighthouse can stop a storm. But could he find a point of stillness within the storm? We practiced a simple anchor, the feeling of his feet on the floor. When the wave comes, I said, don't fight it. Acknowledge it, memory is here. Then, immediately feel your feet. Be the lighthouse on the rock. Feel the solid ground. Shine the light of your attention on the physical sensation of support. It was agonizingly difficult at first. But one day, he reported a breakthrough. A memory had surged, but this time, he felt his feet at the same time. He said, it was still horrible. But I wasn't only the horror. Part of me was the ground. Part of me was the light seeing it happen. He had, for the first time, discovered a point of refuge within the trauma. He was no longer completely lost at sea. This is the power of the practice. It doesn't erase the pain of the past. It builds an unshakable present from which the past can be witnessed without being relived. The lighthouse doesn't erase the shipwrecks of the past, but it prevents new ones by providing a fixed point of orientation in the now. We also carry a deep-seated belief that to be responsible, to be mature, is to carry the weight of the world. We confuse burden with care. We think our anxiety is a form of love, our worry a form of dedication. Buddhism offers a different model, the model of the empty boat. Imagine you are in a rowboat on a calm lake. Another boat drifts into you. If the other boat is empty, you might feel a bump, adjust your course, and move on, perhaps slightly annoyed. But if there is someone in the other boat, and you believe they rammed you on purpose, your entire being erupts, anger, shouting, blame. The Buddha taught that most of our suffering is like being rammed by an empty boat but reacting as if it were full of malicious intent. We take things personally that are not personal. The other driver who cut you off was likely distracted, not targeting you. The critical comment from a colleague may stem from their stress, not your inadequacy. When you realize how many of the boats bumping into you in life are essentially empty, devoid of personal malice, just drifting on the currents of their own causes and conditions, you can stop taking the bumps so personally. You can simply adjust your course and continue rowing. This isn't passivity. It's immense freedom. It conserves the energy you would have spent on rage and victimhood and channels it into clear, purposeful action. Your emotional stability is no longer held hostage by the imagined captains of every passing vessel. Your home is the calm, clear water of your own understanding, from which you can navigate all traffic with wisdom and grace. Let's complete our journey. There is a profound simplicity in the final teachings of the Buddha. As he lay dying, his last words are said to have been, "All conditioned things are impermanent. Strive on with diligence." At first glance, it may seem stark, a reminder of decay followed by a command to strive. But understood deeply, it is the ultimate map home. All conditioned things are impermanent. This is not a morbid warning, but the key to release. Everything you can experience, every thought, feeling, sensation, relationship, achievement, even this body, is a conditioned thing. It arises, it has a duration, it passes away. To cling to any of it as permanent, as your true self, is to guarantee suffering. But in that very impermanence lies your freedom. The changing show is not who you are. You are the aware, silent space witnessing the show. Knowing this is the end of seeking permanence in the fleeting. Strive on with diligence. This is not a call to frantic self-improvement. The Pali word here is apamita, often translated as heedfulness or non-complacency. It is the gentle, continuous effort of remembering. Remembering your true nature as the awareness, not the changing phenomena. Remembering to come back to the breath, to the body, to the present moment when you have wandered. It is the diligence of the bird, constantly adjusting its balance on the branch, not with struggle, but with effortless, attentive grace. This is the path. Not a path to somewhere else, but the path of abiding here, fully, as what you truly are. I will leave you with a final, original story, a parable of the two painters. In a village, there were two painters. The first painter was renowned for his photorealistic detail. He would paint a forest, and you could see every vein on every leaf, every droplet of dew. People would marvel, it looks exactly like the real thing. The painter was proud, but he was also exhausted and perpetually unsatisfied, always seeing some tiny flaw in his replication of reality. The second painter was less celebrated. She painted the same forest, but her strokes were broad, impressionistic. She painted the feeling of the cool morning air, the sense of silent growth, the play of dappled light. You couldn't count the leaves, but when you looked at her painting, you felt you could step into it and breathe the forest air. One day, a wise teacher gathered the villagers before the two paintings. He asked, which painting is more true? The crowd pointed to the first, detailed painting. It matches the forest perfectly, they said. The teacher then asked, when you stand in the actual forest, do you count the leaves? The people were silent. No, he continued. You feel the peace. You hear the rustle. You are enveloped by the life of it. The first painter tried to capture the forest with his mind. The second painter let the forest capture her, and then she poured that experience onto the canvas. One is a painting of the forest. The other is a painting from the forest. One is an artifact of separation. The other is an artifact of union. He turned to the first painter. You are trying to paint your life with perfect, controlled detail. You are trying to replicate an ideal. This is suffering. He turned to the second painter. You are allowing life to paint itself through you. You are not separating yourself from the experience. This is freedom. This is the essence of the inner homecoming we have explored. You are not the first painter, frantically trying to create a perfect, detailed replica of a good life according to some external template. That path is exhaustion and perpetual dissatisfaction. You are invited to be the second painter. Your awareness is the canvas. The present moment, with all its raw sensations, emotions, and simple truths, is the forest. Your practice is not to control and meticulously reproduce an ideal state. It is to let life, in its authentic, imperfect, fleeting beauty, impress itself upon you. Then, from that place of deep, felt union, your actions, your words, your very presence becomes an authentic expression, an artifact of union. It may not look perfect from the outside, but it will feel deeply true, peaceful, and alive from within. Your breath, right now, is the first brushstroke of this painting. The feeling of your body resting is the next. The sound you hear in the distance, the gentle rise and fall of your chest, these are not distractions from the masterpiece. They are the masterpiece, being painted in real time. Your only task is to show up as the open, receptive canvas, not the critical, controlling artist. The Buddha's path leads you to this profound realization: you have been searching for home in a perfectly rendered portrait of how life should be. But home was always the easel, the canvas, and the aware space in which the painting of your life, with all its light and shadow, its sharp lines and soft blends, is continually, effortlessly appearing. You are not the painting. You are the capacity for painting. And in that capacity, you are already free, already whole, already at peace. So, as we come to a close, let this not be an end, but a beginning, a gentle turning toward the easel of your own awareness. Feel the weight of your body, wherever it is supported. Hear the silence that holds the very last vibration of these words. Notice the space in your mind, now, between thoughts. In this simple, unadorned presence, nothing is missing. Nothing needs to be added. You are not late. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are here. Fully. Completely. And in the quiet truth of being here, you have already arrived home. Thank you for your presence here, at Monk's Temple. May you carry this sense of home within you, always.